But Yuri, I hear you think upon seeing the title. April Fools is still pretty fun. In fact, I just pranked my parents by telling them that me and my wife had a miscarriage, and now they don't want to return my phone calls. What wet blankets, am I right? But we're not talking about how loose the word prank has gotten over the years. We're talking about April Fools and how it's affected one of the 75 million things I talk about on this channel, video games. Because while variety is the spice of life, I over-season every meal I've ever cooked. Now listen, I know your subfeed today is probably filled to the brim with jokey jokes and prank videos, but let me just have a non-structured ramble kind of video today. When April Fool's pranks amounted to just magazines telling you how to unlock Akuma in RE2 or Shenlong in Street Fighter with some of the most ridiculous requirements to do so, that was fine, because reading that stuff now, it's obviously a joke. But gullible kids fell for it, so we had no one to blame but ourselves. Then you would have people pretending to be something official, like the time someone made SteamPowered.com, but with 2 P's, and it showed Half-Life 3 seemingly getting shadow dropped, but then you clicked on it and a troll-faced Gabe was all you'd get. And if Splatoon Island is any evidence, people still find this to be fun to do, and good for them. But somewhere along the line, actual video game companies started making April Fool jokes as well, and these, at the start, were fine. You know, there was Capcom making a silly dog Ace Attorney video. Prototype 2 making an unstoppable paper airplane.
I mean, the guy was built just too well. I mean, he could dodge any attack that we or the infected could ever come up with. He was clearly stronger than most of our fodder enemy types in the game. And the motion capture for his hand-to-hand combat really just gave him an edge that most of our gameplay-focused testers simply couldn't deal with. He could buy a bomb like Hella, he can raise hell like Mercer anywhere he goes. He basically just got completely out of control for a paper airplane man.
Sony taking a jab at themselves with PlayStation Flow.
PlayStation have really taken the plunge. They've thrown themselves into the deep end with the flow. We're entering new levels where immersion meets submersion. I'd call it supermersion.
And Pokemon Company making Machamp an underwear model. Like, these are funny. But eventually, we reached a point where companies put in hours. Several, literal hours into making something that you actually want and calling it a joke. Like a Payday animated series? I would watch that. Final Fantasy XIV, but as a Tactics game? I'd be down for that. This cutesy ninja vertical shooter? Yeah, sure, I like one of those every now and then. But none of these are real. And that stinks. Sure, we could get stuff like Catgirl Without Salad or Soul Cresta, games that started off as jokes before they actually made them a real thing, but the fact that it is 2023 and Future Club still hasn't made Skull Gals a thing, despite Pocket Rumble showing the world can still get down with the Neo Geo Pocket Color aesthetic, I just have to reasonably assume nothing announced on April Fool's Day is real until proven otherwise. And also, what's the joke here? You understand this is a thing people would want, but you're not making it, and that's it? I don't know how we got to the point where people think that's a joke. Like Razer making the Rapunzel RGB hair video? That's a good joke. HyperX making the touch grass keyboard and mouse? Gotta chuckle out of me. Bloodstain making Blood Bag physical editions? Very on brand. Yacht Club and Bethesda making fake breakfast cereals? That's just classic. But say, making a fake trailer for a console revision of a Final Fantasy mobile game that could have honestly used one? Yeah, not gonna lie, part of the reason I'm even making this video is so I could finally complain about this to people who are willing to listen. Final Fantasy Brave Exvius started out as a fun mobile game. It was another classic style JRPG, back at a time where those types of games were still few and far between. All that changed, however, when Orlando, aka Thunder God Sid, hit the scene, because from that point on, the game was no longer a simple turn-based affair, it was a game all about chaining attacks and finishing off with big damage. Then, they added characters that can do both of those roles for both physical and magical damage. Then they made hybrid damage, which is both physical and magical, but also not at the same time. Healers needed damage reduction to be useful anymore, support units needed to have the ability to cast multiple buffs in one turn, and the ability to be an MP battery. Tanks needed 100% team-wide provoke and damage reduction for physical and magical damage, and so on. Power creep hit this game so hard that there were meta-defining units every 2 weeks. And no, you didn't have the currency to pull for all of them. So pick and choose, get lucky, or get homeless, because these characters became mandatory over time to even do a chunk of the new content in the game. And yet, the story wasn't bad. That was the kicker. Most mobile games have stories that you just skip over because they're just excuses to get you to the next fight. But Brave Exvius had a decent story. So when you have a decent story stuck in a game with scummy predatory practices, people tend to want to see that story realized in some other way, which leads us back to this video. Because for 1 minute and 45 seconds, you believed that someone heard your pleas and made Brave Exvius into a game without all that power creep nonsense. But then, the last 15 seconds reminds you what day it is. As you can tell, this one hit me the hardest. I'm sure no one cares, but I'm also sure that everyone has one. There's one April Fool's joke that a company or some random person or site on the internet did where there's no slight chuckle or the nose exhale of amusement. No, it's just this moment from SpongeBob personified.
April Fool's jerk.
But as is customary on this channel, let's leave things off on a happy note, because game devs getting in on the holiday has caused a silver lining in all of this. And that is the chosen few who, after they show you something silly, they say, and you can play it now. Like Super Quat, where the devs of Super Hot remade that game's entire gimmick in the Quake engine. Or how Valhalla made a cutesy mini visual novel about all the characters in a school setting. Or how Phantom Breaker Omnia made their goofy trailer guy an actual announcer in the game.
You said you wanted more meat and we listened!
There's the G vertical shooter for Street Fighter V, 8-bit Bayonetta, Rock of Ages having an update on PC that adds a square and titles the game Block of Ages, Blue Archive turning 4 of the students into a fake idol group and putting their single up for download. These are all great. More things like this in the future. Less things like whatever Enix is doing. Speaking of the future though, no doubt this year is going to be a similar situation. A few funny ones, a few more things that we actually want but are never going to happen, and maybe 1 or 2 cool devs that give us something silly to play for a bit. Point is, be on the lookout for fibs, and if something gets announced today and never shows up again, it was probably a lie. Either way, thank you all so much for watching, be safe out there, I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Special thanks goes to B17 Balder, Dr. Nira, Chimera, and DJ Zapper 128 for being $5 patrons on Patreon. Thanks also goes to my other patrons and of course you guys watching at home for supporting me any way you can. Thank you all again for watching the video. I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day. Also, if you're wondering how my Brave Exvius story ends, around the time that they announced 7 stars, which, yes, it really got that bad, I sold my account to someone online and walked away with $100, which, even if part of me misses the time when that game was good, I don't regret my decision even a little.